Democratic strategist Fred Hicks. He's the founder and president of the Hicks Evaluation Group, which has worked with hundreds of political campaigns for nearly 20 years. Also joining us today, Spiro Amburn, Senior Vice President at McGuire Woods Consulting, previously served as Chief of Staff for Republican Georgia House Speakers John Burns and David Ralston. And also joining us today, Donnell Suggs, Editor-in-Chief at the Atlanta Voice. He's written for, among others, the Atlanta Business Chronicle, Atlanta Magazine, and ESPN's The Undefeated. Spiro, let's start with you. Let's start with a Republican's perspective. We have seen a gulf emerge between Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene and President Donald Trump, two of the most prominent Republican voices in Georgia. With them at odds, does that hurt Republicans here in Georgia?
Interesting to say the least. There are no shortages of opinions on either of those two. I don't know about challenges. I think that what will be interesting to see is, I heard the comment by one of the local party chairs that she expects the two of them to make up for next year's election. I'm not sure that that's going to happen, frankly. If it does, it may be surface level, but I'm kind of thinking that Congresswoman Greene is probably thinking 2 or 4 years down the road here. It seems like she's trying to change her tone, change her rhetoric for a post-Trump era.
Fred, I want to bring you in here too. Could we see Democrats kind of seize on this kind of infighting that we're seeing? Or, like Spiro said, are we just going to forget about this by next December? Because as we know, Republicans fall in line. We saw that with Governor Brian Kemp. He came after Governor Kemp's wife. And, it was about the Republican Party, not Donald Trump.
Absolutely. So I think here's the thing. This kind of chaos that we're seeing within the Republican Party is not just with this race. We're also seeing it in the Senate race and in the governor's race. This sort of acerbic, nasty tone that's happening right now. Now, on the one hand, I think anyone who's done a campaign knows that a tough primary makes you stronger for the general election. Mm-hmm. So that's a good thing, I think, in one respect. But I think what this is showing right now is that, if nothing else, Donald Trump is entering the lame duck phase of his presidency. When you're seeing people like Marjorie Taylor Greene start to split off from him, they're starting to say, well, you know what? What's best for Donald Trump might not be best for me. And politics at its core is a game of what is best for me when you're the elected official.
And this is some people I'm sure would dispute that, but if so, this would be the first time that we've seen Republicans break away from President Trump in a significant fashion. We've got about 30 seconds and we want to shift topics, but Donnell, I want to bring you in. What do Georgians tell you in your reporting when you're talking to them about this situation?
Well, I think what they're telling us at the Atlanta Voice is that Marjorie Taylor Greene knows her constituency is going to last a lot longer than this MAGA, whatever this MAGA thing is. And she's got to take care of the people at home before she takes care of people in D.C. So that's why that shift is kind of happening, and I think she's smart for doing that.
I think we're hearing that from people in her district as well. And speaking of 2026, let's talk AI.
Yeah, this whole conversation is looking ahead. We may be seeing some technological advancements in 2026. There was an ad released recently online by a PAC that is supportive of Chris Carr, the Attorney General, Republican, running for governor. I want to show you all a little bit of that ad, and then let's talk about it. Let's play that ad right now.
Today, no college football playoffs. We're talking Georgia politics. Burt Jones, what are you thinking on him?
He is not serious. He spent more time in office helping the Jones family business than helping my family. I don't want that as governor. I can't trust that guy. I like Attorney General Chris Carr.
Look at the film.
So there it is. Those two men are not real. It's all AI generated. It's not a real podcast. They're not real podcast hosts. They're not usually talking about football.
Tell? That's the question.
Let's dwell on that for a moment. Yep. At first glance, Donnell, could you tell right away?
No, because that wouldn't be a commercial I would watch anyway, so I couldn't tell at all.
On the political front, Spiro and Fred, we saw Representative Mike Collins' campaign for Senate put out an AI ad about a week ago. Now we're seeing a PAC aligned with or supportive of Chris Carr putting this ad out there. We should note that with the leader of that PAC, he said effectively, look, we used to use actors, now we use this. What's the difference? Is there a difference? Fred, 30 seconds.
I think this is the wave, and AI is only getting better day by day and week by week. So I think by the time we get to the general election next year, we're going to see way more of this. And it cuts down the cost for campaigns and allows them to turn around stuff a lot faster.
Last word to you, Spiro. We're short on time. 15 seconds.
There's a very fine line there. I think, we've heard a lot about deep fakes and the concern about AI. Technically, that was not a deep fake. They were essentially like paid actors. So, where
and
this technology goes. Right.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see when it's not in support of someone. So we have to go to break right now. We'll see you all on the other side of this commercial.
The core issue at the heart of the record-breaking government shutdown, Affordable Care Act subsidies, remains unresolved. Many Democrats argued any deal to reopen the government should extend the subsidies, but the final bargain does not do that. Senate Republican leadership instead promised to hold a vote on the subsidies next month, but its outcome remains uncertain. We talked about the shutdown's impact this week with the leaders of both the state Republican and Democratic parties. We begin with the Democrats' Charlie Bailey. As you look back on it now, from where you sit as a leader in the Democratic Party and the leader of the Georgia Democratic Party, was the shutdown worth it?
I think we had to fight. We had to fight for people's health care. If we weren't going to do it, nobody was going to. The Republicans had made their decision that they were okay with cutting these subsidies. They had made that decision. It was on us to say, well, what are we going to do? And I think we had to fight. And that continues. You know, this promised vote to come. Well, every day, when's the vote going to be scheduled? When is the vote going to be scheduled? What is it going to look like? Is it a clean extension? John Ossoff put that on as an amendment in June. Are we going to take that up? I mean, and so this is not over. And until Republicans relent and correct their betrayal, then we're going to keep fighting.
Republicans have had a very different perspective throughout the shutdown. We asked State Party Chair Josh McCoon about it and about what he thinks comes next.
When you and I last talked, it was during the shutdown. These Affordable Care Act subsidies have become the key issue of the shutdown. And you said, similar to what you just said here, you said, it's not time to negotiate about ACA subsidies. That time will come only once the government is reopened. The government now is reopened. Those subsidies expire at the end of the year. Do Republicans now have an obligation to find a solution to extend these subsidies now that the government is reopened?
Well, you know, part of the agreement to reopen the government was Senator Thune said, yes, of course, we'll have a vote on extension of Obamacare subsidies. I think that, you know, Republicans in the Congress are going to come up with a common sense answer, whether that be a bridge to temporarily extend these subsidies for a brief period, maybe an additional year, while the Republican majorities devise some sort of permanent solution. I know what is not a permanent solution, and that is borrowing money we don't have to pay for insurance policies that aren't great from an access standpoint to begin with and have never been affordable. They haven't been affordable from the day that the Democrats on a block vote passed Obamacare.
You bring up this promise of a vote. That promise was made in the Senate. House leadership, Republican Speaker Mike Johnson, has not committed to the same promise to hold a vote on these subsidies in the House. You know this, of course, but it takes both the House and the Senate to get a bill to the president's desk. Is there something that you know that I don't? Is the House going to hold a vote on this?
I think that President Trump is probably going to weigh in to this conversation.
You think he'll push for an ACA subsidy, a bill addressing those subsidies before Christmas?
I think he will push for a solution. Absolutely.
Hey, back with our panel now, and we just heard some incredible conversations. We will touch on those, but first, I want to get back to our AI conversation because we know that that's a really big deal. Kind of the first major election cycle that we're going to be seeing this. AI is getting very good. My question is, what happens when it comes to misinformation? Your candidate is on screen saying something that they never said, Fred.
So I think with that, you're going to have a rapid response team. That's what we call it in the campaign world, really at the ready 24/7. And that team is going to have to be more than just seasoned politicos. You're going to have people who are skilled in AI at identifying it, recognizing it, and then turning it around. I think one of the things that Senator Ossoff should have done with that a couple of weeks ago is he should have released his own kind of spoofing it to make people aware of it. And so you're going to have to really step up your game. But that was a missed opportunity for him.
Spiro, do you think that the FEC should come in and create some policy against this, or do you think it's just a fair game now?
I mean, frankly, I don't think it's really that much different than negative campaigning has always been. I think to Fred's point, it just accelerates it. You're going to have to be quicker to react. But misinformation is nothing new, right? Or whether it be a direct mail piece or a TV ad. As long as you're not trying to create, a deep fake where you're actually trying to impersonate the actual candidate, I think that's where.
But we've seen that.
With Ossoff.
Representative Mike Collins' campaign did that, and they defended that. They said, hey, in their view, this is, they said, the next frontier of digital campaigning. And to the point of legislation, and Donnell, I want to bring you in, there was an effort under the Gold Dome in this year's session to try to curb the use of AI in campaigning, and that legislation stalled out. Donnell, do you think that's something we may see brought back up again in the new year?
I think it might need to be. I think we're getting further and further away from dealing with each other, and now we're making each other and making each other say words, and that's a slippery slope. I know, again, negative ads are negative ads. You can make them all you want, but now we're like making up people talking. That's scary.
It is. Faith, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, it's definitely going to be something. I think we might see a reaction when it's the candidate that is out saying something that they're not supposed to say. Really quick here, we have 30 seconds. Donnell, I want to bring it back to you, a journalist at the table. What are you hearing on the ground right now, the feeling of the people, when it comes from AI, what we just heard from Charlie Bailey, Josh McCoon? What is the feeling going to 2026 right now?
We have these small forums at the paper where we'll have 15, 20 people, not really big, and we'll ask them what you want us to cover in politics and what you want to hear more. And folks are getting so disenchanted with politics in general. They almost want to be like, look, just wake me up when it's time to vote. It's so heavy, it's so negative, and now it's not even real. And they get it's getting scarier to hear people say, I don't know if I really want to be involved. We're getting a lot of that.
And they are going to have big decisions to make in this new year.
Not the time.
Guys, always so much to talk about. Unfortunately, we've got a gaming panel, the bonus panel. You might have caught us on television, and here we are on the Plus app now. As always, Faith Jesse, my co-anchor, joining us, and all returning panelists here, Democratic strategist Fred Hicks, Republican strategist Spiro Amburn, and the editor-in-chief of the Atlanta Voice, Donnell Suggs. Guys, thank you for joining us, for being here. And we say it every week because it's true every week. We got a lot going on in Georgia politics. I see some knowing nods here at the table. Let's start with this. We're now about a week out from this record-setting government shutdown. On the show this week, on the Georgia Vote, if you watched, you heard us talk with both the Democratic Party chair and the Republican Party chair in Georgia. We asked them about their thoughts on whether the shutdown was effective for their parties or not. Fred, I want to ask you, did Democrats get out of the shutdown what they wanted to get?
A promise of a conversation at some point? Absolutely not. Listen, after the November 4th election, Democrats we had the wind in our backs, a lot of momentum.
Doing those PSC races and then in Virginia, New Jersey, New York City.
Just across the board. And it was almost a nice cap to a great year for Democrats, whether you're talking about the Wisconsin Supreme Court race back in the spring and all of that. And yet, somehow or another, we managed to stymie our own momentum and disappoint our own voters and throw our own wet blanket on our fire.
This breakaway group of 7 Democrats and 1 independent caucuses with the Democrats in the Senate.
Absolutely, and it's just and it's just so very frustrating for Democratic voters because the reality is, I posted about this in my story. My premiums are going to go up anywhere from $400 to over $1,000, right, per month, and so it's worth the fight. And when someone capitulates, right, with just the idea that you'll have a conversation and a vote, what was the point in that?
So many Americans have asked, was this the right time to have that conversation? Because health care does not know red or blue. There are several Republicans. Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene said, my own kids are going to see these insurance rates rise, but I do not like ACA. She does not like the Affordable Care Act, right? But just like health care crosses party lines, so does money. The government shutdown. It impacted people from their paychecks to SNAP to flights, right? Absolutely. People were not able to make their business meetings or go to see grandma in the hospital, etc. Was this the right time? Spiro, I think I know your answer, but I'm going to let you answer that. And what can Republicans take away from this?
Yeah. Well, look, we're 12 months out from the general election next year. So, I think, frankly, there's going to be a lot of things that come along over the next 12 months that are going to affect the elections in 26. Certainly, this will be part of the conversation, but to be somewhat cynical, I think it'll be kind of old news at that point. I think that from a Republican standpoint, I think Republicans have a lot of work to do.
You think the shutdown will be old news?
I do. Okay. I mean, I think it'll be a topic, but I think with those PSC elections as an example, the state party has a lot of work to do, and the state party has one job, and that is to support Republican candidates and let people know there's an election. And frankly, they failed. So if they don't get that operation turned around, I think Democrats did a much better job mobilizing their voters, and I do think have momentum going into 26.
You mentioned we're about 12 months away from the general election, which is true, but we are much closer to the primaries. Donnell, do you think, one of the things we've heard from a lot of people we've talked to in our reporting is the word frustration come up again and again and again. The primaries are much closer than the general. Do you get the sense that voters will be thinking about this shutdown when they go and cast their primary ballots?
Absolutely. There are people who didn't get paid for the last 6 weeks.
Right.
And you have to figure out Thanksgiving and you have to take care of Christmas. That's not going to end when Christmas is over and January comes in. Before you know it, May will be here. And a lot of folks that talk to us, our reader base is Democratic for the most part. And a lot of them are still frustrated about how they got hurt by this. And now they have to kind of find a way to figure it out at home and then get it into 26. So it's not 5 months, 6 months from now, it's not going to go away.
Especially when every campaign, Republicans and Democrats, you're hearing the word affordability a whole lot. Right now, people care about their money. Nothing else matters if I cannot afford to eat, to take my kids to school, to work.
Absolutely. And remember, this is only a temporary state, so to speak. We're facing another cliff in January.
Right.
At the end of January. So this will still be, I think, a topic.
And we're talking about the issue of the ACA subsidies. It is an unresolved issue. We heard from Chairman of the Republican Party of Georgia, Josh McCoon, on the Georgia vote. He said he expects the House to vote as well as the Senate on a potential extension, or as he put it, a short-term extension, maybe something different. This is going to be a conversation that keeps coming up through the end of the year. I want to switch topics briefly here, though, guys, about something you said earlier on the show, Fred. You talked about this split over the Epstein files vote with President Donald Trump and Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene. And you made the comment, paraphrasing, but you said this seems to be an early indication of President Trump losing some of his firm, extremely firm grasp on the Republican Party. I want to get your follow-up thoughts in a moment, but Spiro, as a Republican, do you see that? Do you feel like President Trump is starting to lose a little bit of his sway over his base?
No, I wouldn't say he's starting to lose any sway over his base. I think he will be the most important factor in the 26 elections, even though he's not on the ballot. That being said, he's not on the ballot. So I think Marjorie Taylor Greene sort of charting her own course here. I think her district is going to support her. They're going to vote for her. I think you mentioned that earlier. And I think that's where you could draw some parallels when you look at Governor Kemp in the past, going against the president. I think Georgians have a tendency to, make decisions separate from, who's on the top of the ticket. But with Trump not on the ballot, though, I don't think you're going to see as many Republicans perhaps turn out like they would in a presidential year. And I think that's going to make, those margins are already tight, and I think statewide, I think that's going to be a factor. Yeah.
That excitement is something Democrats are also going to be looking for. Fred.
Well, for sure. And so remember, even though this is the Georgia votes, Marjorie Taylor Greene wasn't the only one who broke with the president over Epstein and over these other issues. He didn't change his opinion on encouraging Republicans to vote for the release of the Epstein files until that there were enough votes because the Democrat was seated, and other Republicans, another 8 Republicans, started saying, "Hey, we're gonna break away from it." So once it became sort of a bit of inevitability that was going to happen, he jumped on that train. And so that's why I say when you look at that, and you look at there were even talks amongst hardliners during the shutdown that there needs to be some sort of compromise on health care and other issues like that. So we're seeing Republicans are now speaking out. 6 months ago, 8 months ago, they wouldn't even speak out. It was just fall in line. And actually, a year ago, right after the election, everything was just fall in line. Yeah. And now we're starting to see people say, well, I don't know if I agree with you on that.
Maybe the voter doesn't want it. If we could we take an inside look into one of our local races, Fred? We were talking about this, the mayor of Sandy Springs. We're seeing a bipartisan push here, right? Democrat Esther Panish supporting the incumbent mayor, Rusty Paul, a Republican. How rare is that for Georgia? And we could take it nationwide. Could we see more of this?
Well, that is the discussion du jour, so to speak, right now. So, that doesn't happen too terribly often, but when it happens, it does tend to happen at the municipal level, right? Because mayors, we saw this with Mayor Dickens in Atlanta. We had Republican support in the city council races there and stuff like that. But what makes this really interesting is that Rusty Paul isn't just a Republican. He's the former chair of the state GOP, and you have someone who was a leader in the North Fulton Dems and Dante Carter, the opponent there. And so this has opened up a huge can of worms with the implication that Mr. Carter was anti-Semitic, and a number of individuals, including Jewish individuals, coming to his defense. And so it'll be interesting because now the discussion is not within Democratic circles is not just about this mayoral race, but whether or not Democrats will primary Representative Painich in the upcoming election.
Spiro, let's get to you in quickly, and then Donnell, I want to hear what your readers are telling you and your reporting as well. Spiro, you first.
Yeah, I mean, North Fulton, Sandy Springs, Gwinnett, those areas, when you start looking at state house, state senate races next year, that is ground zero for where the swing districts are, and which could, potentially change the numbers in the state General Assembly. So I think this is going to be more common moving forward, that you're going to have in these local races some bipartisan or some cross-pollination between candidates.
People might want that too.
Yeah, through this whole conversation, there's been one theme. We've talked about a lot of topics, but if there's been one theme, it's been 2026. And what these races, these elements, all foreshadow going into the new year. Donnell, I want to give the last word to you. Looking at this race, this municipal race, looking at 2026 ahead, we've got a lot of smart people who watch the show. What should they be watching out for? And what are you watching out for that are going to be the driving themes of this election cycle?
Voter turnout. This past election cycle was pretty strong turnout for being midterm.
The PSC race.
Right, the PSC race in particular, something that people would normally not even care about.
An off year.
Right, a total off year and a total off topic candidacy, and yet a lot of people turned out. So I feel like in the primary coming up, there'll be a big turnout.
We'll see. A lot of it depends on excitement, as we were all just talking about. So hopefully all of you watching are excited, because we're going to be here every single week breaking it down, all the big races. Zach, Fred, Spiro, Donnell, thank you all so much. We'll see you back here next Sunday at 11 for another edition of the extended panel of the Georgia Vote.